Hi, this is Stephen Mead, lifelong entrepreneur, business owner, and global speaker. Over the years, I've read hundreds of books and spent thousands of hours developing what I call the BullsEye belief system. And I've used that system to develop my own companies, as well as help others learn to be specific, targeted, and focused to get exactly what they want in life. Again, I'm Stephen Mead, and this is the BullsEye Guy podcast. Stephen Mead again, another BullsEye Guy podcast. They are coming fast and furious. I think that's my opening every time, boy. That's like, here they are again. Fun stuff. If you've been listening to the podcast, you notice that I am sometimes a fan of lists. Top 10 life hacks, 10 tips for being a better speaker. I did the power of 3, but I can't do lists in 3 because you need a broader one. And today is going to be one of those lists. Again, if you've heard my story, I read, and it sounds like a lot. It is, but it isn't. When I was 22, went to work at Travelers Group, financial services, great guys out of Kansas City. It was really a sales cult, even though we won't call it that, but super competitive, super fun. And the goal was to get better every single week. It's called stacking. How do you stack skill sets? Well, you have to learn something new every week. And Tony Robbins is a big proponent of this in some of his stuff. It's, he's got some 30-day programs where you're learning a new skill every day. But I read 357 books in 6.5 years. Again, sounds like a lot. It's not. It's one book per week. And if you dedicated yourself to read one book per week, you could do it. That's not the trick. That's not the goal. That's not the difficulty. Reading the book is easy. Figuring out what the heck these people are talking about or what they're really trying to say is the difficulty, because sometimes these books could have been written in about 4 pages, but they have to sell books. So there's a ton of stories and setup and 12-page introductions. There's a lot of fluff and crap in a lot of the books. Nothing bad. They have to fill up content, I guess, fill up pages. But for me, I needed to dissect the elements out of the book. I needed to find the genesis of what was trying to be told, and then figure out how to take that 1 or 2 aspects, those 1 or 2 elements, and teach it to my sales force. Every week, we need to learn something new. And that was the goal of reading these books. And it was a wide range. It was sales and psychology and motivation and numerology and palm reading. I've read palms and horoscopes and the 5 love languages. And you read everything when you're trying to get better. And because of that, a lot of people ask me, what are your favorite books? And I have an answer, but they're my favorite. So what I've done instead is I said, what are the top 10 that I think are important for an entrepreneur or somebody trying to get better? And I've built them and sequenced them in order. I can usually talk to somebody. I was just with a friend of mine the other night. Her and her brother were back in town, and she thanked me because I gave her a book to read specifically based on where she was in her business life cycle. And then her brother, who's much further along, been in business, I gave him a completely different book, and both of them told me it was the exact right book at the right time. So we have different points of our journey where books may impact us differently. But if you want to stack, if you want to build skill sets, I'm going to go through and give you my top 10 to read in order. And then have a couple special mentions if we get there. Book number 1, almost everybody's heard of it. Most people have read it if they are in business or any sense. We used to call it Tagger. That was one of my goals. I wouldn't do it now, but when I was younger, I wanted 4 cars that said Tagger, Tagr1, Tagr2. And I knew what each car was going to be, and I knew why I needed 4 cars. One was a sports car convertible, one was a sedan. Tagr stands for Think and Grow Rich. Napoleon Hill. The basis of the book, the Bible. At least the Bible for sales and psychology and sales training. Almost everybody says, you should read Think and Grow Rich. Napoleon Hill, it's the best book. And I'll ask people, so have you read it? Of course. Well, what's it say? Well, it says think and grow rich. I go, okay, what does it mean? Well, whatever you think about happens. Like, okay. Line 1, verse 1, chapter 1. I can almost say it verbatim. I'm not sure. Anybody can go look it up. But the opening line of the book from Napoleon Hill very clearly says, mention is made in every chapter of the secret that has made untold wealth for scores of individuals. Think about that for a minute. Mention is made in every chapter. Mention of the secret. Now, we have a problem with those two words. Mention means he doesn't directly tell you, he mentions it. And the secret means, oh, it's a secret. He doesn't come right out and say it. So I ask people all the time, oh, well, what's the secret? Again, any of you that have seen the movie The Secret, that's sort of where it came from. Most of the stuff that the guys did in The Secret came from Napoleon Hill and a bunch of these masters. But anybody that's read Think and Grow Rich, I would challenge you to come up and say, I know what the secret is. Because usually they don't. Oh, I've read it 5 times, 6. It's a badge of honor to read it 6 times, but you can't figure out what it says. But the benefits of Think and Grow Rich are very interesting. It talks about goal setting, talks about creating a list, talks about being specific in your intent and your thoughts, talks about creating a mastermind group of other like-minded people, and potentially creating mastermind groups of like-minded people that are bigger and better and smarter than you that you want to be like. Again, what you'll start seeing in a lot of these books, we kind of inverted the order. I should have thought about better, but the prior episode 30 of the podcast, I went through a lot of my personal attributes of what I wanted my life to be like. I learned it after reading so many of these books and pulling the elements out. So Think and Grow Rich talks a lot about the subconscious sending station of the mind, being specific in your goals and your intent. There's a lot that goes on underneath there, but that really starts the basis of getting you thinking about what are your goals? What kind of people do you want to be around? How do you do goal setting? And it sort of forms a basis for your thoughts. The next book I always want people to read, and I recommend this one almost always. I recommend it early. Almost anybody that's having a problem, I say, go read this book. Good news with a lot of these books is they're out there now in paperback. They're like $6. I think probably almost every one of my top 10 you could get for under $50 or $60. Not that money's an issue, but they're all out there. But book number 2 is What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. Negative self-talk is such a problem for people. Oh, well, I can't do this, or what if that, what if this happens? The stories that we tell ourselves, if you can't train your mind to not think negative, it becomes an issue. And I frustrate people, I have friends of mine all the time. What's the weather like outside? I don't know. Well, how do you not know? You just walked in. I mean, Eagle, we're down here. If he looked at me and said, what's it like outside? I said, I don't know. I can't control the weather. So the weather's whatever the weather is. Well, how old's somebody? I don't know. How old are you? I don't know. Well, aren't you paying attention to age? No, I don't care. Your age is your age. I don't know how old I am. I mean, I could figure it out and do the math. I don't know how old my mom is. My mom loves it now because for the longest time, I thought she was 33. I still think my mom's in her 30s. She used to be offended that I didn't know how old it is. Now she's like, oh, sweetie, do you still think I'm 30? Yeah, Mom, every day. Every day. But what to say when you talk to yourself? People want to tell you negative things. I had somebody tell me the other day about a bad episode or something that happened. I'm like, I don't even like thinking negative thoughts. Some people just like talking about stuff to talk. I don't even want to go there. I've trained my mind not to think. People go, well, what do you mean you've trained your mind? I've trained my mind not to go negative. I've talked about that before. My thanks for your service pen. I talk about that. When I heard the explosion in New York, right? And what goes through your mind? I said the first thing that went through my mind immediately was, oh, bomb or terrorist attack. But instantly, my mind's trained to not think nefarious. So I was like, oh, it could be a backfire. It could be something fell off a truck. I'm immediately going to something that's not negative because what to say when you talk to yourself? You have to learn negative self-talk to retrain. And if you're not even aware you're doing it, you can't solve that problem. Great book. What to say when you talk to yourself. The third one, The 4 Agreements. I believe it's Don Miguel Ruiz. Talk about it all the time. The 4 Agreements is amazing. One of the 4 agreements is the hardest of the 4 agreements for people to do. And because it's the hardest, it is the most important. Now I'm going to be challenged. I should have written this down. Like much of this is memory. What are the 4 agreements? One of the agreements, be true to your word. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you say you're going to be somewhere on time, be there on time. If you say you're going to help somebody, help them. Be true to your word is a really tough one. The hardest one. Gosh, I wish I remembered all 4. I just went blank. Doesn't matter. Here's the hardest one. Don't take things personally. We grow up taking things personally. Well, so-and-so said this. I'm like, I don't care. Well, this person doesn't like you. I'm like, I don't care. Well, how do you not care? I'm like, I don't like everybody. If I know I don't like everybody, why should I be offended if somebody doesn't like me? All I can do is always do your best, which I think is another one of the 4 agreements. Be true to your word, do your best. Don't take things personally, right? Always do your best goes back to an old Art Williams tape. All you can do is all you can do. All I can do is worry about me being the best person I can be, being true to my word and not taking things personally. But so many people take things personally. Well, if you know how to talk to yourself properly, you can learn how to not take things personally. You see how these kind of stack up? Until you learn what to say when you talk to yourself, you don't know how to reframe and internalize if somebody's talking about you or something's negative or something's going on somewhere. It's like, I don't care. Out of my top 10, one of my prior top 10 lists, my 10 truths, 99% of the things you worry about never happen, so why worry? That goes for personally. A lot of things people take personally, and it's a tough one to overcome. But if you get good at it, doesn't mean you're callous, doesn't mean you don't care. It just means you don't internalize other people's negativity. When people talk negative, I don't even want to hear it. I don't even like thinking about it. So that's me, but it's an interesting one. Again, another one of the classics, the basics, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie. Again, a lot of these are old, but they're classics, and then everything's been sort of repurposed and regurgitated on top of that. What usually happens when you read some of these books, if you're already in the self-improvement side, which is the next book down, you'll see again how these stack. You'll read a book like How to Win Friends and Influence People, and what I want you to do and hope you do and you should do is you'll go, oh, I do that. There'll be some tip in there. There'll be something they're saying. They're like, oh, that's me. That's how I do it. The purpose of some of these books is when you read it or see it, it becomes crystallized in your mind. You may be doing things that you are internalizing and doing without the forefront knowledge to know you're doing it. When you read these books, it becomes to the forefront where you become more cognizant and aware of the things you're doing that makes you successful. And then you can refine them and do them over and over again because you are aware of them. If you're a good people person, if you like networking and business and being around, you'll read How to Win Friends and Influence People. And there's a lot of things in there that you're already doing. The designation of the book is to help you do them better. You have to get better. My next favorite book, The Way of the Wizard, Deepak Chopra. Deepak's got a bunch of great books. The Way of the Wizard to me was really cool because I was always fascinated trying to figure out, well, why am I this kind of person? How am I this? And why are some people different? And Deepak in The Way of the Wizard goes through the arc where we're born as a certain personality. And as we grow, we have no ego. We're a child. We're born. We have an id, a personality. And eventually we develop a little bit of an ego. And that ego might be an insecurity. It might be a bully. It might be something as a kid where we're aware of what people think about us. We're aware of what our friends are saying. We're aware of our parents. And we develop this consciousness, and then we develop an ego. And as we move through, if you progress down this journey, you become a seeker. And I realized a lot of people I was around, and even me at that time, you're in the seeker stage. The seeker means you want to get better. You want to do self-improvement. You want to be a better person. You want to, not be negative. You want to have a better relationship. Being the seeker means you're out reading a lot of content and information. If you're listening to the podcast, more than likely you are in that seeker stage. You're looking for information with a thirst and a knowledge to try and get better. And the goal from the seeker is move to what's called the seer. And when you become a seer, then you know things around you. You've learned, you've evolved, you've developed these skill sets to see when things are bothering you and to see triggers, and you have the capability and techniques and skill sets to seek things, but then you see them for what they are. You don't get upset by things. You know how to set goals. The seer has a different skill set than the seeker. And at the end, you become a wizard. I'd like to think I'm a wizard. I used to be called the Big Wizard by friends of mine in Chicago. They still call me that. Whether I am or not is a different story. But as a wizard, what you've learned is now that you can see things, you learn how to impart them upon others who you want to get better. And that's the whole story of the way of the wizard is how does somebody become the person who knows enough to be able to help other people? And that's where I want you to get to. So Deepak's way of the wizard is a really good one. And if you get through there, you know how to talk to yourself, you know how to win friends. Well, what's next? I then go backwards. And this was a toss-up, so I put them both in because I think they're both sort of equal. One is called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. And the other is called The Power of Positive Thinking. And I couldn't decide which one because depending on where somebody is, I may give them one or the other. Don't sweat the small stuff. If somebody is still caught up in whataboutisms, well, what about this or what about that, or, you know, this is going on, or my boss does that, or my girlfriend that, or my boyfriend this or that. We're always caught up in small things. We're worried about things that we a lot of times can't control. And we get caught up in them. Don't sweat the small stuff teaches you how to not get caught up. But if you've gone through the process that I'm sending you through, if you've gone through what to say when you talk to yourself, you have a better base and skill set than what the book Don't Sweat the Small Stuff teaches you. Don't Sweat It is a good book. What to Say is a better technology, not a better technology, it's a better fundamental book. It's a better underlying skill set that lets you sort of build and stack onto that. The other one I really like is The Power of Positive Thinking. And again, these sort of overlap, they kind of tie together. But if we set goals, if we don't take things personally, if we know how to talk to ourselves, if we know we're in that seeker-seer stage and we want to get better, we need to think positive. And if we learn how to think positive and we've learned how to set goals, everything becomes more powerful. Things start overlapping. They start tying together in a very, very, very unique way. So I don't know which one of those I like. Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, Power of Positive Thinking. They're sort of both right in there, but they're equal. The next one, this one's deep. It's dense. It's a harder read, which is why I didn't put it in the top half of my list. I think you need to develop these skill sets and practice and get better. Again, another Deepak book, Ageless Body, Timeless Mind. Ageless Body, Timeless Mind. Again, people ask me, how old are you? I'm like, I don't know. And they think it's an ageism thing. It's not. I have friends, I don't know how old they are. Why? When I read Ageless Body, Timeless Mind, what it talked a lot about is the saying I created, and I don't know if I stole this from somebody. I hope it's not plagiarism. There's some variants out there, but my saying always was, if I turned to Eagle or Anna or anybody here in the studio said, how old would you be if you didn't know how old you were? Just think about it, because everybody's like, well, how old are you? Is it a negative? I don't know. In my mind, I think I'm much younger than I know I am, but that's where I want to live. I want to live telling myself I'm young, I'm vibrant, all of these things. We're taught that as we get older. No. Ageless Body, Timeless Mind talks about the quantum mass aspects. Again, I don't want to get too technical, but the stories we tell ourselves impact the cells in our body. It impacts if we think we're sick. People say all the time, well, why don't you get sick? I'm like, I don't get sick. Now, some of you know that's not true because some of the prior podcasts, I have a little cough. I still have it, but it's not really sick flu sick. It's a allergy cough. I can't get rid of it. Now that I'm thinking about it, I might cough for a minute. Eagle at least, levels me out on it. But even when I'm sick, I still tell myself I don't get sick because I don't want to keep telling myself, oh, I'm sick. No, like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm sick. The phrase, that's so unlike me. Oh my God, I can't believe I feel tired. That's so unlike me. I never feel tired. Why can I go days on end and sleep 3 or 4 hours? Because I tell myself I don't get tired. What to say when you talk to yourself? Ageless body, timeless mind. This is about reprogramming the way we think, the stories we tell ourselves, and the impact it has on our bodies. And as you get good at this, it doesn't just impact your body, it impacts the other people around you because the positivity and the thought process resonates out to those around you. The next one, we're moving into some entrepreneurial stuff here. This one is called the EMyth. If we know how to think, if we know how to be positive, if we set our goals, the EMyth is the entrepreneur myth. Great guy, Michael Gerber, lives in Southern California, had his 85th birthday a couple years ago. Maybe it was a couple years ago. Could have been a couple months ago. He'll probably kill me. For all I know, Michael, it could have been 5 years ago. It could have been a year ago. Again, I don't think about time. I don't think about time past. If somebody asked me, this is interesting. How long ago was the birthday for Michael Gerber? I have no idea. But I could tell you what was going on in there. I could tell you what he was wearing. I could tell you the people. I met his daughter. I could tell you the details of the event and the people because that's what I wanted to remember. How long ago it was? I have no idea. Doesn't matter. Don't care. It was, well, who knows? But the E-myth talks a lot about the entrepreneur myth, which is most people think they're entrepreneurs and they're not. They're employees. A lot of times you're an employee in your company, even if you are the CEO or the entrepreneur. The E-myth talks about how to not be an employee in your own company, how to think about replacing yourself, how to have scale, how to duplicate. All of these things are very important as an entrepreneur. And Michael's redone the new book. He's got some new examples out. It's called The E-myth Revisited. Again, $5, $6, $7 on Amazon. All this stuff is great. Next one, number 9, the 4-hour work week. A lot of you guys know Tim Ferriss. I love Tim. I actually met Tim in Washington, D.C. at Summit. Elliot and the guys do a thing called Summit Series. It's a brilliant series. Amazing people. Again, I'm fortunate to get to go to some of these things. The Summit Series gets just an amazing group of people that are all like-minded, trying to change the world. But Tim may not even remember this, but we were in Washington, D.C., late at night. He was on a flight, came in late. He sits down next to me at my table. He's super hungry. He doesn't know what to do. Orders a plate of chicken. He's like, oh my God, I'm still hungry. And I said, well, get some more. Oh no, I can't. I'm like, why? This is not one of my favorite books on here, but it's The Instant Millionaire. Just ask. Well, I'm like, here, let me take care of it. And I ordered Tim Ferriss another plate of chicken for him to have dinner at 10:30 at night because he was hungry. I had no idea who he was. He'd actually, I think, just come out with the book, The 4-Hour Workweek. But it's a great book. But the premise of the 4-Hour Workweek, if you read it, is not really to only work 4 hours. It's about how to be hyper efficient in the hours that you do work. You know, one of the examples he gives is this guy who wanted to retire and he's like kite surfing in Brazil and he only works 4 hours because he's kite surfing. Well, that's fine. If you want to kite surf in Brazil, you might be able to work 4 hours. If you want to build a company worth a lot of money with 1,000 employees that become cash millionaire, you might have to work a little bit longer. You might have to work hard, but you can certainly work smarter. The 4-hour work week is all about being efficient. It's not really, to me, at least me personally, it wasn't about, oh, I only work 4 hours, then what do I do with the rest of my time? It was about how can I be hyper efficient in the hours that I work. That's what I love about the 4-hour work week. And then the last of my top 10, then we'll go into my special honorable mentions. This one is really fascinating. It is called The 17 Principles of Success. It is a follow-up book to Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. If you read Tagger, Think and Grow Rich, you get through all of these books, the 17 Principles is quite amazing. These are stories and excerpts that were found after Napoleon Hill's death. They're put together. Some have his actual writings. This is where he actually starts breaking down into what the secret is that he never talks about in Think and Grow Rich. So I would never have anybody read it first. It won't make any sense unless you've been in this seeker mode for a while and read enough books. But that one's really fascinating. It talks about, the subconscious sending station and how the psychology of thought works and where your vibrations are. It really breaks down into some super, super cool stuff that only makes sense if the time is there and you're ready for it. Those are my top 10. I'm going to go with my honorable mentions. One of my favorite people was just with him and his wife a couple weeks ago at City Summit from Ryan Long is Mark Victor Hansen. Big shout out to Mark and his wife. Mark is part of the series with Jack Canfield. They did Chicken Soup for the Soul. And so the reason I didn't pick a specific book from Mark is they have, 200 of them. I mean, he's amazing. The prolific nature of Chicken Soup for the Soul, Chicken Soup for the Entrepreneur, Chicken Soup for the Mother, Chicken Soup for the Teen. It's amazing. They all have this great ethos, though, about great stories of people who have done amazing things. He's got a brand new book out, talks about the miracle of tithing and things like that and giving back. If you get a chance on Amazon, check that out. We'll probably put a link out there. But Mark Victor Hansen, certainly one of my all-time favorites. Amazing job. And again, the only reason he's not in my top 10 is his are more inspirational stories. But if you read the stories and you're inspired, if you don't have the educational component to know how to accomplish the inspirational things, then there's a disconnect. I want you to have the tool sets. I want you to learn how to be better. Start with Why. Simon's book. Again, one of my top 10, things is the power of questions. The keys to the universe are good questions. And as an entrepreneur, I tell people that all the time. When you start a company, the number one question I like to ask is, why won't this work? Not, what do you think about how great? Why won't this work? Why am I missing this? Why is somebody else better? Ask why, because the power of why gets you to the answers. And sometimes the power of why lets you solicit positive information in the aspect of a negative quadrant question. And what I mean by that is if I go to somebody showing them my new company, what do you think of this? Even if they think it's a crappy idea, they're usually not going to say it. Oh, yeah, that looks cool. Cool doesn't help me. Like, I already think it's cool. I wouldn't be doing it. I just don't want to waste my time if it's stupid. Hey, here's what I'm doing. Why won't this work? Why won't it work? What am I missing? Who else is doing this? Tell me why this won't work. Give me all the reasons you think I'll fail. But I'm framing it in a way that it becomes feedback that's positive for me, where somebody's not afraid to give me negative information. That's the real information I need. They may be right. They may be wrong. They may be critical. I'm not going to take it personally. I'm going to see if I think they're right or it's something I need to overcome. Start with Why. Super, super fun one. And then the last one. This one, I don't know that it's really a business book, but it's a fascinating book. It's called The Den of Thieves. Eagle, ever heard of The Den of Thieves? This is funny. Dennis is going to kill me, but it's okay. Timely, newsly, and relevant. There were a couple of guys years ago, a guy named Michael Milken, the Milken Institute. Milken just got pardoned from Trump. He's done an amazing job with the Institute in L.A. Around education and medicine. Really, Michael's done an amazing job. Ivan Boesky and a guy named Dennis Levine. Dennis is a good friend of mine. I was actually just at breakfast with him in New York. He's doing some really cool stuff around farm factories, and he was calling it greenhouses. I'm like, I don't get it, because a greenhouse to me was old. It's created farm factories. These hermetically sealed farm factories where they can grow leafy green vegetables in a contained environment, no pesticides. Like it's basically glorified greenhouses, but you can't call it a greenhouse because then people think it's something else. The Den of Thieves is about those three gentlemen when they were doing the junk bonds of the 80s. This is when part of the financial systems collapsed. And there was a great movie out called Wall Street. Again, a little bit dated. Gordon Gekko. Greed is good. Greed Works. That character was based on Dennis Levine. Dennis was actually, unfortunately was one of the guys who did go to prison on this stuff. He's out now, done amazing, turned his life around just like Milken has. But he was interviewed while he was there, and the character Gordon Gekko was modeled after Dennis Levine. He hates that story, but it's so cool. So the Den of Thieves, if you want one a little bit outside, it gives you some historical relevance of guys who not only tried to change the world in a positive way, then it changed in a little bit of a negative with the collapse, and then they've redeemed themselves and really done exciting things with their life. So those are my top 10. If you're going to read them, try and read them in order. They do stack on top of each other. It will help you get better. Again, Steve and me, this is the BullsEye Guy podcast, Groove Radio Station, downtown LA. Thank you so much. Tune in next week.